Welcome back, another episode. Following their introduction of a new interpretation of Bizarro, Superman and Lois use Lex Luthor to transform Superman's physical opponent into Doomsday. Luthor, who was just released from prison, wants to assassinate Superman and her father, General Sam Lane. He blames Lois Lane for his supposed unfair imprisonment. Every fan who has watched the numerous adaptations of the death of Superman over the last 20 years was aware that Lex would win at least one of the two. Superman and Lois, Season 4 Episodes 1 and 2 present the finest interpretation of Superman's demise. The combat itself is the most challenging part of translating 1993's Death of Superman storyline. Visually engaging work was produced by artist John Bogdanove, writer Dan Jurgens, inker Brett Breeding, and others in a 3-issue duel throughout the nation. Such destruction, even for comics, was astounding. It's ironic that live action can never fully emulate the original work. Nevertheless, considering the financial constraints, Superman and Lois perform admirably. It's likely the best adaptation of the fight in any media outside of comic books, especially when one considers how the show's animators finished the fight in a fraction of the time it took their film counterparts. The battle between Superman and Doomsday throughout the solar system is reminiscent of the comic book panels, with wreckage floating in space. Tyler Hoechlin had a great performance, which was probably recorded in front of a green screen while wearing a harness. Without using words, he conveys Superman's resolve without ever really winning. In the comics, Superman had a few victories, defeating Doomsday and rescuing people during the conflict. There is no one to save in space. Another way that Superman and Lois pays homage to the comics is by fusing the storylines of other characters with the action scenes. Even though viewers were aware of how this fight would end the moment Doomsday appeared, Elizabeth Tulloch, Alex Garfin, and Michael Bishop managed to evoke anxiety with their performances. By taking the fight off of Earth, they are also able to make up for the lost ground because of their fear of losing Clark. The first and second episodes of Superman and Lois Season 4 present an uninspired Lex Luthor. Though the Joker gets a lot of attention, Superman's archenemy Lex Luthor is the DC Comics villain that is genuinely hardest to portray on screen. The problem in portraying Luthor is that there are two very different, yet equally admirable, interpretations of him. Gene Hackman's portrayal of the greatest criminal mind of all time in the 1978 Superman film is arguably the best loved. But after those 4 movies, Luthor changed from being a cartoonish genius to a modern, immoral industrial behemoth and the epitome of corporate avarice. The modern-day Luthor is also almost too much of a one-dimensional antagonist, focusing only on killing Superman, tampering with Lois, and eventually her father. In addition to being the leader of Luthor Corp., Luthor was also a mob boss. To be honest, he ought to have more ambitious plans and goals. Furthermore, the particular offense that resulted in his 17-year prison sentence was a hoax. The death of Clark Kent highlights Lois, Jonathan, and Jordan. Viewers witness flashbacks of Lois and Clark's earlier years in addition to the ongoing story in the present. Similar to Luthor, they were introduced to the public after the majority of their story had already been told. By the time Lois and Clark made their Season 1 appearance, they were developed characters. Even though we didn't need to know their intricate backstories, it was nevertheless exciting to see them at last. Among these flashbacks, the moment in the Kent family kitchen right after Clark confesses his secret is probably the greatest. These premiere episodes feature Lana Lang, Sarah, and Sam Lane, although they are guest stars rather than regular cast members this time around. Nevertheless, it's fortunate that they were present since it adds to the Kent family's sense of grief and terror. For more videos, subscribe.